Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transactions. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO.
Nice to have you with us this weekend. We always appreciate that. And a return guest, although it's been a while, Doug Stanley with Fred's Appliance. Welcome back to the show, Doug.
Good morning, Denny. Really happy to be here. Thanks.
You betcha. It has been a while, so naturally we do the get reacquainted. Your position with Fred's and what all that entails, and number of years and all of that.
Got it. Well, I am the general manager for Fred's Appliance for the Montana markets. That includes 4 stores across Montana. I do all of the purchasing for those 4 markets as well as oversee the operation in each of those stores. Been with them since 2012 when they first, actually before they started in Montana.
What led you to the profession?
Well, that's a funny story, actually. I was going to go back to the ranch right out of college, and I found a lovely lady who I ended up marrying. We've been married for many years.
Oh, very nice.
And I decided to get a job to get me through the winter over in Bozeman, Montana, and I went to work for a guy named Pete Van.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one of the finest gentlemen you could ever work for.
You bet, yeah.
Taught me
I
a
knew
lot.
Pete.
And I worked for them for about 3.5 years. Did go back to the ranch for 10 years. Got hired back as a store manager in the Kalispell market for Vans a number of years ago, and then saw them through that transition and have been with Fred's Appliance ever since.
Oh, gosh. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have been around a little while. They remember Vans Appliance. Yep. And Pete was, not only a great guy, but he was an excellent marketer. Boy,
he was an absolute gem, and he respected us as workers and was just a great guy to learn from.
Well, you're overseeing the Montana stores, but let's focus on our town a little bit. A radio tour of the Missoula Fred's Appliance store. What can we expect to see when we come in?
Awesome. Well, to start with, it's by far the biggest appliance showroom you're going to find in Montana. We have somewhere around 12,000 square feet of appliance space, and it's attached to Madison Creek Home Furnishings and to Lawrence Carpet One.
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting dynamic in and of itself. But it's a really well-lit, natural light showroom. Lots and lots of appliances from all different brands, and that's all that we carry. But we do have 16 vignettes of custom brands of appliances, so you can see how it might look in your own home with different cabinetry ideas from Direct Source and a couple of other suppliers. So really a unique opportunity to see kind of all of the brands under one roof and have some help, because we actually have an assisted sales process, have some help making the right selections.
That's got to be a nice symbiotic, I don't know if I'm using that word right or not, relationship to have a huge appliance store adjacent to a flooring store and a beautiful furniture store. We've had the folks from Madison. Well, we've had Lawrence on as well. But what a nice triplex you've got there.
It is. I think it's pretty unique, and it's something that served us well. We've been there for just about 10 years now, and it's really been good for all 3 businesses.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest is Doug Stanley, General Manager of the Fred's Appliance stores in Montana, including the one right here in Missoula. Let's talk trends a little bit, Doug. What are some of the biggest in-demand items right now?
Got it. So one of the biggest in-demand items right now is induction ranges. There's this national conversation about banning gas stoves or gas ranges. And so there's quite a bit of conversation about induction cooking. And induction is as fast and as responsive as gas cooking is, but it's all electric, so it's safer. And on some people's minds, it's more, environmentally friendly. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. And then freezers still continue to be very strong, as I think we hunker down in our homes and make sure that we've got, a month or 2 supply of food in front of us, because egg shortages and all kinds of other things have happened. So people are still really looking for freezers.
How has that been for Fred's Appliance? Trying to prep inventory for what might be a big demand, a big trend. I know that the whole gas appliance is, as you say, in the conversation. Very tactfully put, Doug. But how has where are we at manufacturing wise on that? Is there still a kind of a limited availability, or how is that coming?
So that's going to be category by category, but I'll just describe it this way, Denny. What should be a supply chain is a bit of a supply bungee cord right now. So essentially what has happened is During the pandemic, there's a little bit of a story here, so bear with me.
Sure, no, go ahead. We've got plenty of time.
During the pandemic, a whole lot of first some dollars flowed to the average American consumer, and we all sat at home with our dishwashers and said, "Man, this thing's too loud." So suddenly, everybody needed a new dishwasher, new laundry set, whatever that is. Good for us, and that's part of what communicated to the factories that they needed additional production capacity. Well, at the same time, those factories were really slow because they couldn't have enough workers, or they had worker shutdowns, whatever those things look like. So there was a big delta between how much was being produced and what our demand looked like out here. That obviously played to our strength because we already had a warehouse full of product that was pretty quickly consumed. Well, that went on for about a year and a half, and a couple of things happened. The first is those manufacturers really booked all of that demand that they saw from us as increased demand, when what was really happening is we were essentially ordering further and further and further out in advance. So rather than, it's not like I actually needed 36 of a specific dishwasher in a month. I was ordering 6 for January, 6 for February, 6 for March, 6 for April, and so on. And when they saw that, they said, "Oh, we've got all this increased demand." So they've increased their production capacity. Well, now that things have normalized a little bit, in many cases, they have too much. And the demand has slacked a little bit as monetary policy has tightened up and consumers are not using their houses as an ATM as much, right? Interest rates and all of those things.
Yeah.
So demand has slacked a little bit. And right now there's a little bit of, I would say, overproduction, and they're getting pretty promotional and some good deals out there. That's in the general appliance category. The one place that really has not recovered and is still pretty darn scary is premium appliances. So brands like Wolf and Sub-Zero, Thermador, GE Monogram, especially Wolf and Sub-Zero. If you were to come in today and buy a brand new refrigerator from the best of the brands, the lead time on that's going to be somewhere around 12 months. Might be as long as 15 months. So we have orders in the system, which helps to a degree. But if you want one of those custom appliances, sometimes that lead time is still very long.
Is that a fairly respectable percentage of your clientele looking for that particular? For you use the word premium appliances. Obviously, the demand's outweighing the supply a little bit right now, at least a little bit. But is that pretty common of the customer base that comes in?
It's not a huge percentage of our customers for sure, and it's also typically a new home build or a new construction or a massive remodel. And so the lead time on those projects typically is somewhere around 9 to 15 months anyway. Mm-hmm. But if they wait till 3 months before the project is complete to come in, then we're in trouble. And so obviously having a good partner with the builder that we know and understands that timeline is really critical on that piece.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. Our guest, Doug Stanley, General Manager of Fred's Appliance, Montana markets, including right here in Missoula. You focus strictly on appliances. What has made that such a successful business model for Fred's Appliance?
Well, I always, when people ask me what I do for a living, I say, I really just sell bent metal. To reduce it to something that simple is probably not quite honest.
Yeah. Don't be so modest, Doug.
The appliance industry is a lot more complicated than it might seem if you actually become specialists in it. And so there are a lot of categories where we have to know an awful lot more than somebody who doesn't classify themselves as a specialist, a box store, for example. I don't want to pick on those guys. But ultimately, I have more people in my store that have to know a lot more about the nuanced details of how this thing's going to work in your life. And so ultimately, it boils down to we have the largest selection in order to show some of those items that aren't necessarily just a washer and dryer. We have to be more specialized, and it's something that we don't want to get distracted by other categories.
And you did talk a little bit about premium appliances. It's been 14 months since you and I talked last on this show. Are you hopefully more optimistic about supply chains moving forward? Continued uptick in those?
Yeah, I just got back from a buying group show in Las Vegas with GE and Whirlpool and Thermador and Miele and all those brands. They're a little concerned about having too many goods available. And so generally speaking, I think that's going to be the concern for 2023 from the factories, with pockets of shortages. And those shortages are still somewhat nagging and somewhat unpredictable. So what'll happen is somebody suddenly will say, "Oh gosh, we don't." Some supplier in France or Spain that normally puts out the burner assembly for a specific cooktop brand will suddenly run short, and because it's not a huge category, when that brand runs out, GE Profile or GE Cafe as an example, suddenly there's a rush to everybody else that produces gas cooktops. And now everybody's short, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit unpredictable as to what they are, but wholesale shortages across broad categories of product are almost a thing of the past. And I will name one very specific example that's still a little ways out, but almost over. Bosch is the number one selling dishwasher brand in America. Huge company, German company, but they build in North Carolina, New Bern, North Carolina. Their dishwasher demand was so high at the beginning of the pandemic that they got over a year out on purchase orders. Now we had truckloads scheduled, every month. Some of the things, purchase orders that I ordered 2 years ago are just now coming available. They had a new brand. They stopped taking purchase orders on their old models last June, at the end of June. And their new models are coming available in July, and we believe that we'll finally be caught up on Bosch dishwashers maybe by mid-August for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah. It's no fun, but you've probably found, if nothing else, during these last few years, customers are at least getting a little more conditioned to that. I mean, the first time you had to tell a customer that you were a year out or whatever, it was probably, what? I'm going somewhere else. Then you go somewhere else and you get the same story. So then you go somewhere else and you get the story. So at least that's probably helped your business a little bit in what do I want to say? At least appeasing.
Perhaps goodwill.
Yeah, appeasing customers a little bit because it ain't just Fred's Appliance. It's just one of those things that we've all had to deal with in all kinds of products.
That's true for sure, but we do still hear almost every day somebody come in and say, "I'm tired of hearing about the pandemic. Just get me a stinking dishwasher," right?
Okay. Gee, that doesn't sound like a typical consumer attitude at all, does it? Man, I'd like you to talk a little bit. You've mentioned a few of them. They're all great, but I'd like you to talk about a little bit more about the brands you do carry at Fred's Appliance. Which ones you're really impressed with that you are most proud to sell?
Got it. This is always dangerous territory because if any of our suppliers are listening.
I'll just mention them all. You can't lose that way, huh?
So, gosh, I think there's about 45, Denny.
Okay.
The brands that I'm most proud of representing are, obviously there's Wolf, Sub-Zero, and Cove dishwasher. It's an American-made company, and they're best in fit and finish, quality, longevity, just amazing brands. Right now, if you can't get them for 12 or 15 months, an awful lot of customers are pretty unhappy with those brands.
Yeah.
Close second in that category is Thermador and Bosch appliances, and those do really well for us. And it's also, again, a relatively small, flat company that empowers their field people to actually make good decisions on behalf of our customers, and that always feels a lot better for us as an independent retailer. And the third one that I'll mention, and this is kind of funny because, gosh, when I worked for Pete Van in 1989 and 90, it was our number one brand, and that's General Electric. GE of today is not your mom and pop's GE from 100 years ago. Essentially, what's going on with them is it's the same people that they've had for decades, and they're really good, solid folks that are interested in our success, but they've been allowed to be very innovative with things like color and finishes and custom handles and lots of technology applied to those things. And mostly they're made in America, and they're doing just an amazing job of capturing market share with compelling finishes other than stainless steel. So that's an exciting company to be around right now.
It's funny, when you first started answering that question, I immediately hearkened back to, in my mind, to Pete Van, and with Pete Van came General Electric, and then you bring up Pete Van and General Electric. Gee, the two were really just amazing how synonymous they were back in that day, in that era, right?
Oh, for sure. And it was, I'll just say it this way. GE still feels like a small company. They're certainly growing market share, and they're one of the biggest in the appliance industry. But we sit down with heads of state, if you will, and they still act like a very small company, and they make decisions based on the feedback that we give them. And I think that's pretty unique. It's not a bureaucracy like we alluded to earlier.
Yeah. I like that. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. And my guest, Doug Stanley, General Manager of Fred's Appliance, the Montana markets, including the one right here in Missoula, where we are. Also, thanks to Diane's marketing partners that help bring you the show every weekend on News Talk KGVO. Miles Link at Opportunity Bank of Montana, and Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage. And back to Doug Stanley with Fred's Appliance. Technology updates, Doug. Everybody likes, gadgetry. Any new features among the appliance lines you carry that you feel have really been game changers?
I'll hit three primary things. And the first is the induction cooking that I talked about a little bit earlier. Essentially, induction is an electric process of cooking using magnets. So you have to have a pan that a magnet will stick to. And if you do that, you've got a very efficient cooking method that's faster than cooking with gas and far safer than cooking with gas, and it still is responsive. So I can bring it to a boil, and if I turn it down to a simmer, it instantly goes down to a simmer. So induction technology is really exciting. Right now, it's suddenly in demand, and there's a little bit of delay being able to get that. But that's a very exciting technology. A couple others I will add, and there are a lot of connected appliances today, and everybody's doing something different with that. Some of them will allow you to see inside the refrigerator and see whether you have milk when you're at the grocery store. Yeah. I think that's interesting, and I'm not sure every customer buys into that, but there are some really cool applications of that connected technology that work. An example would be, my wife and I, we have a home, and she's down in the basement, working with the chickens or whatever. She gets a text from her washing machine when the load is done so that she can go up and put it in the dryer. If she's not close and she can't hear the timer, that's a problem, right? So she gets a text from that machine that does that. Other applications for connected technology, that same washing machine, by the way, if it has an issue and it senses that something's not working quite right, it can actually, it'll throw an error code, and it can actually schedule a technician to come out. And that technician now shows up, essentially connects via Bluetooth to that machine, and knows exactly what's wrong with it and what to order. So there's some really cool applications of that technology that are coming along for the ride as well.
Man, that is amazing. You brought up your outstanding staff. How much training is involved to make sure your staff is on top of all that product knowledge you've been talking about here for about 17 minutes?
If you were to ask them, it's when are we done training? We're never done training, right? Every day is another opportunity.
Oh, sounds like Town Square Media.
Yeah.
Wow.
It honestly, it takes about 18 months for somebody to be really proficient, and it takes about 3 years for somebody to become an expert in all the things that we carry. During the pandemic, I'll be honest and say our industry hasn't just been super exciting and fun during that. And so we lost a couple of, veteran players that just said, I've had enough and I'm going to retire or find something where I'm not getting yelled at every day because I can't get a dishwasher. So we had to hire a lot of people during the pandemic, and we have a great sales staff out at Fred's Appliance. Some of them have been with us, I'm going to say as little as maybe 6 or 7 months, and they're still in process of training. We're spending a lot of time with that, and we'll spend probably 300 hours in that first year and a half in different training processes.
Do you find, the way you describe this, oh my gosh, that must be just so tedious and what a drain to be involved that long. But I'll bet in your profession, you find on a nearly daily basis, you will get asked a question. You know the answer to it, but you probably thought, I will never need to know the answer to this, but you just never know what customers, what their priorities are, what kinds of things they might have on your mind. And man, I think that's really impressive. I commend your company and team for doing that, because you just never know what kinds of questions each individual customer is going to have.
Yeah, that's right. And, there's so much that we need to know about new technologies, emerging technologies. We need to know brand stories. We need to know differences about which shelves adjust which way in refrigerators for specific models and all of those sorts of things. And then to your point, we have users that call in and say, hey, I need to know how this works. Well, gosh, I haven't gone quite to that level, so let me dive into the owner's manual, and now I become even more of an expert.
Right. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Doug Stanley, General Manager of Fred's Appliance, the Montana stores, the Montana markets. I'm sorry, how many markets in Montana again?
We're in 4 stores in Montana.
All right, and those are?
Kalispell, Missoula, Bozeman, and Billings.
All right. And Doug, of course, headquartered here at the Missoula store. And, whether it's a refrigerator, dishwasher, et cetera, Doug, are there features that you've talked about some of the high-tech stuff, but there's also got to be things that everybody just expects that appliance to have, things that they just got to make sure in terms of their priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'll use it as an example. Everybody wants their dishwasher to be quiet. And there are an awful lot of dishwashers today that are quiet enough. And once they're quiet enough, it's like they can keep adding quiet packages, but it doesn't really improve the performance. So there's a lot of other things that come into play. And I gave you a couple of specific examples. A lot of people don't know, but dishwashers today, probably half of them have a third rack for the cutlery up above. And it allows you to be able to get the cutlery very clean because it gets direct water to it, but you don't then have to touch the part that you eat off of. So if you put them tines down in the little basket in the bottom of a dishwasher, they don't get as clean because they're in the bottom and they sort of nest together and they're not spread out so the water can hit them. So that third rack is a really big deal in a dishwasher right now. The other thing, and this is going to sound a little techie, right? Food preservation matters in a refrigerator because otherwise it's really just about keeping the food cold. Well, food preservation differences are happening in refrigerators today, so you can keep produce fresh, 2-3 weeks, significantly longer than you have ever before in a refrigerator. And that's because of things like twin evaporators or dual compressors in refrigeration systems. And even a company called Beko just came out with what they call Harvest Fresh. It uses different colored LED lights to simulate what happens outside in nature to help produce last longer in your refrigerator. So there's some really interesting features that are, I would just say, benefits that customers can have from appliances today that they might not even be expecting.
So it's a little more than the bin that says produce on it. Is that what you're telling me?
That's exactly right, for sure. And us understanding how to guide you through using that correctly obviously makes a huge difference in the experience that you have with the appliance.
Yeah, again, product knowledge with Fred's Appliance. Finance program, that looks really attractive. How effective and helpful has that been for customers?
More and more with every passing month, as you can imagine. A lot of folks really like that 12-month or deferred interest financing program. So it essentially frees up your credit card balances for something else. You don't have to pay for any of this. And in many cases where somebody's doing a remodel or just bought a home and they're putting new appliances in it, it doesn't show up as a debt until that ownership has been taken. So that's been a really big deal.
Yeah.
There's also a new program available for folks, as things tighten up and there's talk of the R word. There's a new program that allows customers to finance appliances for up to 60 months for just 9.99%. So that can help somebody get a full suite of appliances with a really low monthly payment that can help them string that out if things are tight.
How about delivery, installation, that kind of service? How does Fred's Appliance stack up there?
Man, I am so proud of the operational side of our business. We have an amazing warehouse and delivery team. They do amazing work. Every morning I get an email. Every customer feedback that we get an email from our warehouse manager. And this morning I probably got 16 or 18 from yesterday's deliveries. And it's super exciting to see that the customers are having a great experience. And yeah, I got to be honest, there's a lot of places you can go, mostly box stores that are going to have free delivery. Our delivery is not free. Our delivery is the best delivery experience you can get. And it costs us something. We pay our delivery guys more than I think they probably do across town. And we train them and we work really hard to make sure that customers have an amazing experience.
Now, your store and our offices, we are kind of in the same little part of Missoula here. We're not too far apart. So naturally, I would expect to see a few more Fred's Appliance vans, but I am always seeing Fred's Appliance vans every single day. Whether I look out on, how many you got anyway?
So we actually have 3 delivery trucks that are based out of Missoula.
Well, they're efficient because it seems like more than that.
Yep. And then we have 3 service techs that are rolling around in little Nissan pickups.
Okay.
And then the F-150 that you see rolling around is my work truck. And I often have the delivery team rolling around with something in that. We're doing a lot of multiplex deliveries, as Missoula grows. And so those require a lot more touch and a lot more daily visits just to make sure that they're ready for tomorrow's delivery.
All right. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. My guest, Doug Stanley, General Manager of the Fred's Appliance Montana markets, including right here in Missoula. And Fred's was at the Missoula Home and Garden Show this past weekend. Doug, do you folks you enjoy getting out in public, meeting people, and displaying some of your fine products? How did all of that go?
You know, that was actually a really great show. I have so much great feedback from the new store manager down at the store, as well as the other salespeople that were out there.
Yeah.
Really good experience, lots of energy, lots of excited customers. It's been a few years, obviously, since we've been to a home show. And we were really excited to be able to participate. And I got to be honest, it was actually transactional. We don't go to those things expecting to make a lot of sales. But Sunday and Monday both, we had a lot of customers that came into the store and actually purchased something because of the conversation that they had at the home show. So really exciting to be part of that and see, just people being out and about and with smiles on their faces. Man, that's so refreshing.
Good for you. That's great stuff. I guess now I'll ask about success stories, and that's kind of one right there. But as you know, I always do ask about success stories. Any sales or customer service transactions come to mind that made you especially proud of the Fred's Appliance team?
There's not any one transaction. A whole lot of people that come in and they're frustrated because they go somewhere and they make a purchase, and 3 or 4 months later they still don't have it, and they still don't have any feedback about when they're going to get it.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, some of that's happened with us too, because the manufacturers are not giving us really good information. But we carry so many appliances in our warehouse that if you're really hard up for an appliance and you've been waiting for somewhere for many months, I've got something in stock that's going to work for you. So being able to help somebody out that's been without a refrigerator for 2 or 3 weeks and be able to go back to our warehouse team and say, hey, we got a customer that's got a dead fridge, need somebody to get one out this afternoon, and they roll up their sleeves and they go, absolutely, let's go do it. And so to me, that's our whole business model. It's the ability to be more reactive, to be empowered to make those decisions, to be able to have enough inventory to be able to take care of immediate, urgent customer situations that I think makes Fred's pretty special.
And where is warehousing? What do you have to do if that need arises?
So that's been a very interesting thing in the pandemic, and we actually had added on some warehouse space out at our facility.
Got it. Okay.
And so we have 3 warehouse compartments out there. The amount of inventory that we carry in dollars is kind of a staggering number, but we're doing a good business, so I can't complain. It's just a constant shovel to make sure that we're not over inventoried. So we've got I'd have to think about the total number, but I'm going to bet that we're in excess of 2,000 appliances in stock right now.
That is impressive. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate on News Talk KGVO. And my guest has been Doug Stanley, General Manager of Fred's Appliance, the Montana markets based here in Missoula. Anything I missed, Doug, that you want to make sure that we got covered today?
No, the thing that I'm really excited about is this April 15th is the 10th year anniversary of our Missoula store.
Oh, very good.
And our arrival in Montana. And so we've actually got some of our folks that have been with us since day one. Some of our salespeople, even some of our warehouse folks. So I'm super excited to have a 10-year anniversary in a market that's been very good to us, and we feel really at home here.
And Fred's Appliance, as far as other states, how many there are, and where all are they?
So Fred's is a really big mom and pop. Actually, nice. Spokane-based. Fred Amastoza had a service company in downtown Spokane, Washington. And so the home office is still there where they still had the service techs. The service department is right across the street. And there are 4 stores in Spokane, 1 in Coeur d'Alene, and 1 in Kennewick, Washington, and then across Montana now.
The Missoula store, location, hours, contact information, all of that stuff.
Yeah, so Missoula store is at 4949 Buckhouse Lane. It's right next to the Peak and obviously attached to Lauren's Carpet One out there.
Yeah.
We're open 9 to 7 Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 on Saturday, and 10 to 5 on Sunday. With fredsappliances.com, obviously, is our website. And if you order something online, it's essentially going to drive right to the salespeople at the sales counter. So they're going to call you and talk to you and make sure that that's the right decision for you. And all of our appliances are stored on site there. So if you have a need, you come out. We can probably load you up before you even leave the parking lot.
Doug Stanley with Fred's Appliance on Missoula Real Estate Today. Great job. It was wonderful having you back on.
You betcha. Thanks, Denny. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.